Good morning. I am Christy Kane, the Director of Kids Ministries for the IPHC, and I'm super excited to have some very special guests with us here today, and they're here to talk about outreach to kids. And this has been something that's been on my heart for a while, and specifically was emphasized recently and when our discipleship team began to pray where the Lord was leading us. And one person in particular said, I really feel like the Lord is calling us to widen our gaze. And as soon as he said that, I thought, we have got to widen our gaze to the children beyond the walls of the church. And the Lord then since then has just been connecting me with some very special people. And two of those are here. They're going to join us today. The first one is Christian Peters, and Christian is from Berlin, Germany, and he is a professional in the business world, but he also founded and leads an organization called Hope for One. He's an IPHC ordained pastor, and I'm excited for you to meet him. And the next person is my good friend, Jan Cromer. She serves with me on the Children's Council for the IPHC. She is also an IPHC pastor, children's pastor specifically at Taylor Memorial Church in Anderson, South Carolina. And she leads a very interesting and wonderful ministry to the children in her community. So I just want to welcome them now, and I'm going to give them a moment to share a little bit more about what they do. Christian, you want to start?
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, my wife and I, we started about 9 years ago to reach out to children on public playgrounds in the former GDR part of Berlin, Germany. So as we drove by those playgrounds, we realized there's a huge amount of kids playing there, and the Lord put a burden on our heart to reach them with the gospel. So we started to do sidewalk Sunday school programs, weekly programs, reaching out to the families who were present. By the time we did not have any training or material to do that, so we were looking for ways in how to implement such programs. The ministry grew, the team grew. We were reaching more than this one site a week. And then God opened a door a couple of years later for us to train others, specifically in Africa, but also in some German cities, other churches, other church volunteers, to train them in evangelistic Sunday school ministry. And we have trained more than 3,000 volunteers in churches around Africa since then. You see, the problem was when we started, we had no access to training material or curriculum, not even to mention free one. That's why we created the stuff that we will briefly talk about today, online training that we did and online curriculum, because we want to put the right tools in the hands of those who are with us on the same mission, who want to reach out to children in their community. That's what we do.
Awesome. Jan?
Well, I have just been giving, or just been asking God to just give me a spirit of evangelism. I had prayed that God would just engulf me with a spirit, so much so that I would not be able to think about anything else. And all I can say is be careful what you ask for. There were so many ways the Lord was calling me out. God had just given me this vision about not being open to hearing the calls of children outside the church. It's children who were desperately needed for hope. And right after that, someone from our church had asked me to visit a home that she rode by on a daily basis, wanted me to go by and check on this child she had seen outside many times. And she'd already asked me twice. And on the third time, I just decided to go. And for whatever reason, as I rode by, God just spoke to my spirit and said, don't stop. I want you to just pray. And at that moment in my car, a song was playing with the words, do you hear them calling out for you and me? And I just began to cry. And for 3 months, I made a trip by that house almost every day and just began to pray for a single mom and a daughter. And I cried every time. And God just began to give me something that I lacked. And that was the spirit of evangelism.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, both of you. And I really believe that your energy and your excitement and passion that you have for lost children is one that's from the Lord. And I hope that it's contagious as we talk. But I also want people to know that what you do, that Christian, for example, the work that you do with Hope for One, it's not just something that is for Berlin or for Africa, that it's something we can implement here. And Jan, what you do as well, it's not just for South Carolina. That you can take what both of you do and use it wherever you are. I really believe that. And I hope that will also, the practical will be a help to you. But before we get into that, I just want to spend a moment on what is it really that should make evangelism and outreach to children, why should it be a priority for our churches? Either one of you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you see, when we reach the children in our neighborhood, we reach the whole neighborhood. We reach the whole communities. Usually when you reach out to the children, the next moment you have the moms, you have the whole family, and it really gives you a perfect opportunity to step into their world and get them to connect with your church. So in order to reach the whole neighborhood, the children are a perfect starting point. You see, I was told a long time ago, Northern Africa, it used to be Christian, and the church, they were having a lot of programs to take care of the old vulnerable seniors, while they were allowing the Muslims to offer programs for children. And now you see the outcome. We see one of the strongest Muslim regions in the world where communities used to be Christian dominated. So I think we need to make sure that the church tomorrow is stronger than the church today. If we want to reach the next generation today, then we need to reach both the already churched children and the not yet church ones.
Yes, that's a good point. And I think that's helpful. From someone, and I think we always talk about how Europe is a little bit farther along for those of us who are ministering in the U.S. and just in terms of where Christianity has gone. It's really helpful to have that perspective and to hear from that. What about you, Jan?
Well, I believe that the children of this day is reaping the results where we as the church have failed to reach their parents. We've closed ourselves inside the church building and we're just waiting for them to come, and they're not coming. And I believe we only have one generation to reach the next. And I truly believe that God is just saying that the spirit of evangelism needs to be awakened in our churches and to reach children that are broken and crying out, but will never enter the doors of our church.
Well, were you going to say something? You go ahead.
I think many people might ask the question, we are living in special times right now, because we have this pandemic situation. Of course, we think about a gazillion things, and now for some, we bring this topic of children evangelism, and it might be confusing. But you see, I think that the perfect time for preparation is right now, because during this pandemic time, so many people's lives have been shaken. Their world got turned upside down. They don't know what happens, and they are lacking peace, and they are in need of hope. So I think if we prepare now, we can really leverage the effect even of this pandemic times as soon as it's possible again to reach out, to bring hope into our communities, and to reach out to the next generation. And see, we were talking earlier, and this tagline was discussed, don't waste this crisis. We shouldn't waste this crisis, and we should embrace the opportunities that it brings.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Jan, have you seen anything? I'm just going to throw kind of a curveball at you, but have you seen any differences, or what kind of? I'm sure you have. What kind of differences have you seen in the I guess the hearts of the families and the children that you're reaching out to? Because I think I might be wrong, Christian, but I think that where Jan is living, there's a little bit more. We've got a little bit more freedom to reach out to the children at this point of the pandemic than I think you do in Berlin. So, Jan, as you're starting to see things open up, can you tell a difference in responsiveness?
I have. Someone once said that when Samson, it wasn't until Samson lost his sight that he found this focus. And I believe that the Wednesday night outreach program, I know even here, was literally just wiped out from underneath us and with no kids. And when we started going out and reaching, and there was just so many families who were just desperate for something for their children during that time. And kids are coming back in, but there's no doubt that, we're not waiting on them. We're just going to continue to go out where we are and do what we do.
Well, what suggestions would you both have for someone who maybe they're just starting to feel like the Lord is pushing them to reach out to the kids in their communities? What would you say to somebody like that?
Even if you have to go alone, go. Go.
Good.
Oh yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. And I would add to that, be faithful. For the children, it's not important to have a perfect program, because sometimes we tend to think, oh, I'm not perfect. Yes, we are all learning, of course, but it's more beneficial. It's more important that they can rely on you. You are being there every week. You are faithful. For example, here, we decided about the weekday when we first started, before we started, because usually in German culture, we would go with a Saturday, because Saturday is always the family day and everything. But then Saturdays are also used for weddings. And if we go with a Saturday and then every month we are invited at some wedding or so, then we cannot be faithful. And for the children, the most important thing is our faithfulness.
When you say faithfulness, do you mean like, if you're going to show up one day of the week, tell me what you mean by that practically, like that you're always there the same time every week, or that they can reach out to you. Would you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is that the kids know, when we tell them we're here every Monday at 4, then we have to be there every Monday at 4. Or if it's bi-weekly or whatever. But if we tell the kids, okay, we invite you to this program and this is the time and the place where it happens, then the last thing that we want to have is for them to turn up and we are not there, because then we just lost them. So we planned in advance, when can we realize it? When can we really implement the program? And then we are there no matter what. If it's raining, if it's not the perfect situation, we can put up some tents, whatever. But that the kids rely on us being there for 100%.
Awesome. I know that this starting to think about doing an outreach ministry for a lot of people is intimidating, especially when you think about the obstacles that might be coming in your way or the challenges. I know I've heard some people say, that it's hard to think about, bringing those children into a church, because, how will that work? Or will I have the support, or will I get the money for the things that I want? Maybe I know some people have, I think Jan, I think y'all prayed for a while for a van or a trailer of some sort to use. It's, I think the minute that we think, okay, I'm going to do this, all these questions and all these challenges start coming our way. And then sometimes you get started and physical challenges actually do come your way. What would you say to someone who that's kind of where they are? They're sitting and thinking about through the challenges, or they're experiencing the challenges.
Well, I would say think small. Yeah, don't start with a huge setup. You see, our first setup, when we started, it fit in a trunk of a very small car. I know about the US cars, but I can tell you, German cars, European cars in specific, they are small, and everything fit inside the small trunk. Sometimes we see pictures of other ministries, and then we think, okay, we need the stage, we need the perfect sound system, we need all those props. No, we don't. Think small and just start. It's important that we just go the first step, and then it comes back to the faithfulness again. As we start, and people will see that you are faithful, and then time goes by, what we experienced every time, that after a while they want to join the bandwagon, and then you will have the support. Others will join the team. But they first want to see, okay, does it really work? Can you really make a difference? Or is it just a one-time thing?
That's awesome. So start small. Jan?
We did. We named a couple of things that we thought we would need, just a little sound system, a tarp, and we got a tent, and we just headed out. What we did is we just looked for the nearest apartment complex. And we just decided to adopt that area for just 3 months. We just set one goal, and we went out every week, the same apartment, the same doors for 3 months, and just giving gifts at the door. Usually it was candy, just to, with no strings attached, just to let them know, that we're not out to build our church, we're out to build a relationship.
Mhm.
And I'm a firm believer that relationships will earn you the right to be heard.
That's awesome. I love both of those suggestions. So remember to start small and focus on relationships, and then that will carry you a long way. That's great. I want to talk about some practical tips for getting started. And I know you both have some because you've both done it. But I also think it's important for them, for our listeners, to hear the differences between what you do. There's some similarities, but there are also some differences. So they realize that that all of these outreaches won't look the same. And so could each of you maybe just into, like, I don't know, take a couple minutes and tell me what your ministry to children looks like just on a normal afternoon or a normal evening. Jan, why don't you start?
Ladies first.
No, Christian.
No, ladies first, please.
Me and the pastor of our church and my daughter, we go out every Saturday to the local apartment complex. We set up the same time. We go door to door and invite them out, and we have worship, singing, the gospel message. We play games. And then sometime during the week, we try to go by there for a home visit just to check in on the kids. It's nothing big, nothing grand. It's just out building relationships.
That's awesome. Christian, what about you guys with Hope for One?
Well, our Hope Clubs, that's how we call our programs. They look like our team is leaving for the specific site we set up in advance. So we do a stage setup or whatever the team uses. In Germany, we do have a truck that converts it to a mobile stage, but in other locations we just use the floor. So we do our setup. We play a couple of games. We create a fun atmosphere where kids can be kids, because for some of those kids, it's the only time of the week where they can actually be kids. They have fun. They play games. They sing loud songs. We invite as many as we can to join the program. Then, of course, we start with our program. We have different elements, of course, such as songs, such as games, and of course the lesson time, as you would expect. And one thing that we really learned along the way, but what is super important as we start our programs, we need to be as transparent as we can with the parents, because the kids are usually, at least in Germany, I don't know about the US, but our kids are usually not without supervision. And so we want to be 100% transparent with the parents about what's happening. So while we invite all the kids and play our games and everything, we do those announcements. Okay, who are we? What is about to happen? How long will the program take? And of course, we let them know that this is a church for children, so nobody can come afterwards and well, I didn't know that you tell something about God or whatever. So transparency is super important for us. And then the whole relationship thing, of course, it's before the program and also afterwards. And this looks quite different depending on the location. Somewhere it's possible to do home visits. Somewhere we can visit the families, pray for them. In Berlin, this is culturally nearly independent, but we find other ways, and we can connect with the families on public sites, such as playgrounds during the week. Yes.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I keep thinking about is how important it is to connect with those kids. Jan, you mentioned relationships. So what are some ways specifically that you work to build those relationships with those kids as they come back? Are there little tips that you have on building relationships?
Mine would be just to love with an undeniable kingdom love that the kids won't forever forget. When we go out, when a parent told me yesterday, she said, when I hear the knock at the door, she said, my kids, it's just music to their ears. They come running out, they give hugs, and you're giving something to them that some of these kids may not get at home. And that's why I feel like it's much easier than what most people think when you go out. But being consistent, I think, is the biggest thing. Consistency is what these kids need. A lot of them, have parents who leave and don't come back, and or say they're going to do something for them and don't do it. Consistency, I believe, is the key, and just the undeniable love.
We keep coming back to those two things, the faithfulness or consistency in the relationships. And then also, Christian, I think that's great about mentioning transparency, because depending on where you are in the U.S., that certainly may be a big factor for parents and even for letting them listen. So that's really important. Christian, you have Hope for One is actually something that I want our audience to hear about, because it's a program that you can take that you guys have created free of charge, and it has curriculum and all of that kind of thing. Talk about how people here can get connected to what you're doing and use those materials to reach the children in their area.
Yeah, well, that's exactly at the center of what we do right now, and it's just our heartbeat, because we want to put the right tools into the hands of those who are willing to reach out to the next generation. And I think, and I hope, and I pray that we made it as easy as possible, because we've been exactly in your position. If you're thinking about reaching your neighborhood and you just don't know how to start, and you don't know where to find the resources to do that, and see, everything has been prepared for you. You need maybe one other person so that you have your small team, and you need faithfulness, and you need an email address. You can just sign up at our website, hopeforone.org, and you will have a free account. Everything we do is 100% free of charge, and it will stay like this. We are not planning on charging for anything. So you register for the account, you get trained, you have access to the online training, of course available in English, but also some other languages. Maybe Spanish is the most important one for our listeners. And then German, yeah. But anyway, even that is covered. And then, you will find basically two big buttons. One is the online training, so you can train yourself and you can train your team in how we do these programs. And it's a good starting point. Of course, if you want to do it differently, hey, come on, it's freedom. But it's a good starting point. This is how it works in different countries, and it has been proven. It's a good concept. And then the other button says lessons, and you receive the free curriculum that we do. We are currently writing still. We have a couple of years already covered. So 1 year is 52 lessons, obviously. And I think we are online with year 2 now, but we are still writing more curriculum. We are planning to do 5 years of 52 lessons each. And this curriculum is even available in even more languages. With the African background, it's understandable. But it doesn't have to be perfect. Just register on the website, get your free account, check out the online training, check out the curriculum, and I hope, and I'm sure it will help you, because it has been designed specifically for evangelistic children ministry with a different audience in mind than what you would use in church.
I'm glad that you said. I'm really glad that you said that, because when you and I, one of the first conversations that we had, Christian and Jane, I think you and I talked about this as well, is when we tell the story in our churches, and most of us probably who are listening either have children of our own or we're working in a church. When we tell the stories of the Bible, the kids typically have heard those stories somewhere before. Some of them have been listening to them since they were 2 and 3 years old. And so you use the example specifically of David and Goliath. And when our kids hear that story, they know that in the end that David is going to win. Well, you were telling me about how these are kids and they think Goliath is going to win. And I think it's so important for us to put ourselves in the place of someone who's just never heard, and to find resources that will meet the needs of those kids, because most of the resources, let's just face it, most of the resources we use, I think they're written even maybe unintentionally with kids who are churched in mind. And so I think one of the big advantages of using a program like yours is that you have written from a different perspective. You've written for kids who have maybe never heard and maybe barely even know who Jesus is. And so I think
yeah, it's a multicultural team. I mean, there's different Hope Club teachers or Sunday school teachers from all over the world writing that curriculum together with different cultural backgrounds. So most of them they have served couple of years in the US, of course, but also from other cultures and other nations, and they put together this curriculum. We put a lot of effort in it, and we try to make it as easy as possible to apply it. So you don't have to spend huge amounts of time to prepare your lesson. Everything has been already prepared. Other volunteers can enter your team with a minimal effort of investing the time to prepare their part of the lesson. So it's just what you need if you want to start reaching out to children.
Awesome. As we wind down, if you're watching on Facebook and you have a question for Jan or Christian, we'd love for you to type that question in and we'll get that to them before we close. Also want you to know that we are recording this session. So if you want to share this, or maybe you wanted to take notes and you don't have your notepad with you, you want to take notes and do that, then we'll release that as well as the website for Hope for One. But in the meantime, Jan and Christian, is there anything that you that's just on your heart that you would want to share before we end our time together?
Well, if you're still thinking about whether or not you should start to reach out to your community, reach out to the children, stop thinking about it, start doing it. Let's just do it as one of those big sport brands. I'm not sure if we can mention the name, but just do it, okay? Just do it. Just start. Think small. Be consistent, as Jan said. I like it. Consistency. Amen. Come on. And just start making a difference. And I'm sure others will join. And don't underestimate the level of influence that you can have if it's just you reaching out to your community. It will have a huge impact.
I say just make you a goal. Just set a goal, even if it's just for a few months. Go out and just visit. And I've been doing ministry for, I'd say, about 25 years. But if I could start over, I would have definitely started with outreach. I would have just invested so much more into that. It's very rewarding.
That's awesome. I think I just I would say the same thing, kind of what you both have said, but if you feel like this is on your heart, it's not there by mistake. I really feel like this is the thing that God's called us to do. He's called us to make disciples. And it starts right where we are. And so don't just assume that it's something that it's just kind of come into my mind and it's not really something I'm supposed to do. If you feel like the Lord's drawing you to reach the children in your community, I would say that is from Him. That is from Him. So, well, we do have a couple of questions. I'd love to ask Jan and Christian both of these questions to you if we have a few more. The first one is, how do you handle the discipleship disappointments with the families you minister to? That's a great question, because there will be disappointments.
That's me first. Okay.
Sure. I'll pick next time.
Well, as you said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. There will be disappointments, and we have seen this throughout the years. Of course, we have a couple of teenagers. They were sitting on the tubs when they were kids, and we just baptized them a couple of weeks ago. We did round 2, but there are also other disappointments. We had helpers. And we invested so much into them, and we tried to raise them, so much time, but yeah, they took a different path. I think it's something that you will be faced with even more if you do outreach than if you do discipleship inside the church, and you just have to prepare yourself that this will happen, but it will not stop us from investing into the next ones. You say the the word of God does not return void, right? And I think something has been planted into the hearts of the ones, even if we think at the time, okay, it is it's a disappointment right now, because specifically with this age group that we are working with, when they are kids, maybe we can reach them as they turn teenagers. I mean, we all know that it's times are changing, and but still, the fruit of hope has been planted in their heart, and sometimes years later we see them return. And don't stop praying for them, don't stop investing in them, and don't be disappointed, and don't stop investing in the next one.
That's good. You never know what kind of foundation will come
Yeah.
back later. Jan, do you have anything?
I'd say we only have one generation to reach the next. We need to move quickly, and don't let discouragement, keep you from going forward and doing what you know beyond a shadow of doubt that God's called you to do. And if you're, like Christian said, if you're questioning whether God's called you to do it, that's proof right there that God's calling you, and it's time to go out and go with an urgency.
Yes. I think of how important it is for me when I think about things like outreach, for me to surround myself too with people who are like-minded, because they bring me encouragement too. And just for example, just hearing every time I hear you two talk, Jan and Christian, it just encourages me to keep going. And so maybe that would be another suggestion. We have one more very practical question that I want to ask. How do you handle the cold weather months when it comes to outreach? Christian, I know you have cold weather. So.
We do have cold weather, of course. Yes. No, we did it differently over the years. When we started, we were determined to continue our program until Holy Night, of course, because specifically in Germany, Christmas is the best time to talk about Jesus, and nobody can be angry at you in public. But I can tell you that these were the longest Novembers that I experienced in my life. I mean, September, October is no problem. We still have a lot of sun, but in November it's raining, it's freezing cold, and then you are just hoping to make it through Christmas, so that you can leverage that. We decided to stop doing that in Germany for different reasons. One is, of course, the situation that attendance will drop in cold weather month, and then also parents are, they're not super happy if you offer a program in the public, at least in our culture, because they're concerned about health for their children, all of that. So we decided to stop with a daylight saving, which is in our climate more or less acceptable. It's not a problem to have kids sit down and all of that. If we were to continue until December, January, I mean, it's snowing here in Berlin. It snows.
That's helpful. And I think what you've essentially said is you have to know your people, and you have to know your community and what works for them. Jan, I know you don't have as much cold weather as Christian does, but you do have some cold weather. So.
To us, it's cold.
Yeah.
The word consistency, we go out regardless. We've been out there when it's raining. We've taken out some things out to them when it's snowing. If they expect you to come, we have to show up. So we do have some fun packs that we take out often. If it's cold and raining, that's a little bit of a different story. And we just knock on their doors and leave it with them. But we are usually out there regardless of the weather.
I think what's great about that is you've got two different perspectives. In both cases, you let your people know what you're doing, and so that the expectations are set, and so you're still being consistent and faithful, but you're operating within, again, what works in your community. And so
communication is key, and there are different climate zones in the US. I know that for sure. I mean, I haven't traveled all of them, but I know it looks very different in up there than, let's say, in the Keys or whatever. But if you are planning to do a break for winter season, or I mean, even you have a huge a summer break in regards to the school, right? So if you're planning to do a break of your program, let your people know, communicate that you will not be there for X amount of weeks, so that everybody's on the same page. Start communicating a couple of weeks before you close so that everybody has a fair chance to know what's going on. And then you can have a break, but still be consistent. But yeah, it comes down to know your people, know your community.
That's good. Well, thank you, Christy and Angie, for those questions. I appreciate you guys watching and asking the things that you were wondering about. And oh, wait, we have another one from Elaine. How do you decide when you would start offering a van or bus to bring them to the church? So I guess that's going beyond. Now you've gotten their attendance, or you've drawn in a crowd, I guess, and so maybe now it's time. You're starting to wonder if it's time to bring them to church. How do you decide that?
For us, we believe that the ministry that we do there is the church. So we did that with the mindset that we weren't bringing them into the church, but that we were bringing the church to them. Not that I think that we should not. We don't have a van ministry or a bus ministry, but our Sidewalk Sunday School each Saturday is their church, and that's what they call it.
Okay.
Yes, we experience the same thing. I like how you said it. Yeah, for most of the families, this is the church that they will attend, and this is the only church. For many of them, this is the only church that they want to go to, because it's low level. It's there's not a lot of hindrance. Still, we try to connect as many families as possible to the local churches that are nearby the sites. So whatever church is available to work with us and is nearby, we try to connect the families and to integrate them in the church. In Africa, it's a little bit different, because we are only starting those Hope Clubs in cooperation with a local church. So it's their outreach program. In Berlin, it's a little bit, yeah, we are doing several sites, and then we connect with the local church that is nearby. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and being here with us and having this very important conversation. I want to have more conversations about reaching the children in our communities. I hope this is just the beginning of that. But I do, Jan and Christian, thank you both for what you're doing and for talking with us today and sharing your experiences and just your passion for children. And we, again, I hope that we can do it again. So thanks for everybody. Don't forget, if you weren't able to see all of this, or you weren't able to finish it, or you want to share this with people in your church or people in your community, we will record this and share this later. We'll also share the link for Hope for One. But for now, we appreciate all that you're doing, where you are. We're so grateful that we are doing this as a team, as broadly, globally, as the IPHC kids. And we will just be praying for you where you are. Thanks again.